The cowboy named Revert could touch any cooked food and turn it back into its raw ingredients. A roasted chicken became a raw bird. A baked apple became a hard fruit on a branch. He discovered his gift as a boy when he touched his mother's burnt toast, and it became fresh bread dough. His mother screamed and called him the devil's child and sent him to live with an aunt in Montana. Revert grew up hiding his hands in gloves and cooking his own meals in secret away from all eyes. He became a rancher because cows were raw and he could not accidentally uncook a living animal. A famous chef named Morsel lost her sense of taste after a knife slipped and damaged her lingual nerve. She could no longer taste salt or sweet or bitter, or the difference between basil and cilantro. Morsel retreated to Montana to buy beef from small ranches and drown her grief in open skies. She stopped at Revert's ranch to inspect his cattle and smelled something burning from his cabin kitchen. Revert had forgotten a stew on the stove, and it was scorched black and smoking in the cast iron pot. Morsel watched in horror as he removed his glove and plunged his bare hand into the burning stew. The stew bubbled backward, separating into raw vegetables and raw beef and water that had never been heated. Morsel dropped her clipboard and said, "What in the name of Julia Child did I just witness?" Revert turned pale and said, "You saw nothing. Please leave. I am not a sideshow freak for your amusement." Morsel knelt beside the pot and touched the raw beef and raw carrots and said, "This is impossible and beautiful." She looked up at him and said, "You can save every mistake I have ever made in 30 years of cooking." Revert stared at her and said, "You are not afraid? You are not disgusted? You do not think I am cursed?" Morsel laughed for the first time since her accident and said, "I lost my taste. You uncook food. We are both broken and magnificent." She asked him to let her stay on the ranch and study his gift because she had a theory about reversing her nerve damage. Revert agreed because she was the first person who looked at his hands with wonder instead of horror. Morsel cooked meals for him, and he would intentionally burn them so she could watch the uncooking process up close. Each time he touched the blackened food, it reverted to raw, and she took notes on temperature and texture and time. She noticed that his gift worked on any cooking method: boiling, frying, baking, roasting, even microwaving. One night, she asked him to try uncooking something that was not food but had been cooked by heat. Revert touched a burnt wooden spoon, and nothing happened because his gift only worked on edible matter. Morsel wrote in her journal, "Gift limited to organic culinary substrates. Possible connection to taste receptors." She began experimenting with her own damaged tongue by touching it after he uncooked spicy foods. Revert would roast a chili pepper and then uncook it, and Morsel would taste the raw pepper on her numb tongue. Slowly, over months, her nerve endings began to respond because his gift left trace enzymes on everything he touched. She cried when she tasted salt for the first time in 2 years on a piece of raw potato he had uncooked. Revert held her as she sobbed, and he whispered, "I have never used my gift to help anyone except myself hide." Morsel looked at him and said, "You just gave me back my career, my joy, my reason for waking up every morning." She kissed him, and his hands instinctively grabbed the counter, and he did not uncook the moment. Revert said, "I have never kissed anyone before because I was afraid I would uncook their lips into infant mouths." Morsel laughed and said, "Your gift does not work on living tissue. Your mother was wrong. You are not a devil." He wept because he had believed his mother's curse for 40 years, and now a chef with a broken tongue had freed him. Morsel proposed to him in the same kitchen where she had first watched him uncook a burnt stew. She said, "I want to spend my life cooking badly so you can uncook my mistakes, and then we can start over at dinner every night." Revert said yes and added, "I have never had a dinner that was not silent and alone. I want burnt food and your laugh and do-overs forever." They got married in the kitchen with a burnt cake that he uncooked, and then she baked again perfectly. The guests ate the second cake and said it was the best they had ever tasted because it had been made twice. Revert's written vows said, I promise to uncook every argument and every burnt egg and every mistake you think is permanent. Morsel's vow said, I promise to cook you breakfast every morning, even if you have to uncook it and pretend I am Betty Crocker. They danced their first dance around the kitchen island with flour on both their noses and a pot of boiling water on the stove. Revert accidentally touched the boiling pot, and the water became cold, and the pasta turned back into hard noodles. Morsel laughed and said, You just uncooked dinner. Now we have to start all over. That is our marriage in one sentence. They had 2 children, and both inherited their father's gift, but learned to use it only for good and never for hiding. Their son once uncooked the classmate's burnt signs project, and the teacher gave him an A for creativity. Their daughter uncooked a ruined Thanksgiving turkey and saved the family dinner and became the favorite grandchild forever. Revert started a secret service for local restaurants. Chefs would call him when they burned an expensive dish. He would arrive in his truck, uncook the disaster, and leave without payment because his mother had been wrong about payment too. Morsel regained her full taste after 5 years of his enzyme therapy and opened a small restaurant called the Uncooked Cowboy. The menu had a disclaimer. If you hate your meal, our silent partner will revert it to raw ingredients. No refunds. No one ever understood the disclaimer, but the restaurant became famous for its perfectly cooked food and zero kitchen waste. Revert worked in the back room, uncooking mistakes quietly and never showing his face to the customers. One evening, a food critic wrote a review saying, This restaurant has a magical ability to never burn anything. Impossible but delicious. Morsel framed that review and hung it above their bed next to a photograph of Revert's hands holding a raw carrot. When Revert turned 60, his gift began to fade because age slowed the enzymes in his skin and blood. He could still uncook slightly burnt food, but charcoal was beyond his reach, and he mourned the loss quietly. Morsel said, Do not mourn. You have saved 10,000 dishes. Let the 11,000 burn, and we will laugh about it. He uncooked his last burnt stew at 72, and then his hands went still, and the magic left his bones forever. Revert sat in his kitchen and cried because he did not know who he was without his gift to hide behind. Morsel held him and said, You are the man who gave me back my taste. You are the father of 2 miracle children. You are my burnt toast. He laughed and said, Burnt toast? That is the least romantic compliment anyone has ever given me. She said, Burnt toast is the only food you cannot uncook. And I love burnt toast because it reminds me of your first gift to me. Revert realized that his worth was not in his hands, but in the woman who saw him uncook a stew and decided to stay. He lived another 10 years without his gift, and he never missed it because Morsel's cooking was finally perfect without his help. She had learned to cook through her regained taste, and every meal was a masterpiece that never needed uncooking. Revert would joke, You do not need me anymore. My only job was fixing your mistakes, and now you do not make any. Morsel would kiss him and say, I make mistakes every day. I married a cowboy who cannot cook, but can uncook my heart. He died at 82 with her hand in his and the smell of fresh bread from her oven filling the bedroom. His last words were, Uncook my death. Turn me back into a young man who found you in a kitchen with a burnt stew. Morsel whispered, I cannot uncook anything, but I can remember everything. And I will remember you until I burn my own last meal. She survived him by 3 years, and their children buried her next to Revert with a cast iron pot between their graves. The gravestone reads, He uncooked burnt food. She cooked his heart. Together they made a recipe that never needed fixing. Every year, chefs leave burnt offerings at their grave and return the next day to find them turned into raw ingredients by no human hand. Revert and Morsel proved that the greatest gift is not never making mistakes, but having someone who will revert you to start over again. If you have been hiding a strange or shameful part of yourself, find someone who will kneel beside your burning pot and call it beautiful. Subscribe to Stories Hub Official for more emotional Western romances about the miracles hiding in ordinary hands and burnt stews. Share this video with someone who has tasted your mistakes and stayed for the second batch, because that person is your sous chef from heaven.